Building a buckler can be lots of fun, and I'll show you how before this one is done. A little glimpse of what I will do, and the need is so great that I'm building too. Oh hey friends, Lauren back with you, and today we're buckler building. That's right, we're going to talk about building some bucklers. Here's an example. We will talk about how we get from cutting a wooden circle to a finished product. But I figured I'd do this as a video because once they're finished, then I can't show you the steps. I can't show you what I'm doing to put these together. And yes, there are two, and they have slightly different sizes. We'll explain that. As well as what you'll need to make a buckler and how you can work around making it low cost. Because maybe it's just for a costume. You want a little shield. Maybe it's just for some light training. You don't need a super sturdy buckler. Well, as long as you have a piece of wood that's 12 by 12 and ½ inch, 1.25 centimeters thick, so 30 centimeters by 30 centimeters, then you're going to be fine. You'll be able to make a buckler. So I bought a larger piece of wood for $17 Canadian, and it's enough to make 4. I only need 2. So there we go. So it's fairly cost effective. I can save the other piece. I can do something else with it. I can make more bucklers in the future, especially if they fall apart and I need to recycle. Now I am using the boss part, the little metal disc. That's a shield boss. I am using these that I have purchased. I have 2 of them. One and a larger one. 2. And its design is slightly different from previous designs that I've made bucklers for. The whole reason I need them is because I'll be teaching sword and buckler this fall, and I have swords, of course, extra in my collection, and I need some extra bucklers to match with them and loan them out to people who don't have them, because I can't expect people to go out and spend $500-600 for a 12-week program and then may not need them for another 2 years at our club. Not, you know. Besides, there are other things that they need to buy. Protective gear, maybe a saber for a longer course. We can go into that, but we want to talk about bucklers. So how do I make this little round shield? Well, I have lots of measurements. You can see there are a lot of lines. This one says SM for small because I'm using the small shield boss. This one is LG for large because I'm using the larger shield boss. Different holes in the center. So you're going to need to make this wreath shape. A hole corresponding to the center based on where you're going to rivet your shield boss is important. This is 30 by 30 centimeters. So the diameter 30 centimeters or 12 inches. But then I cut it down a little bit. So when I'm cutting out the line with a jigsaw, one of the tools that we will need, it's a little bit smaller. And then of course I have to cut out the center. That I always measure based on the parts that I have, making sure that there's enough room to bolt everything together when we're done. Okay. So, I cut out a disc. I mean, you could have it smaller, but you could make it bigger. But we need this disc. We also need a handle. I'll show you on this other one here. So, that's the shape that I have chosen. Now, you could have just put a piece of wood across. Kind of shape it a little bit. So, I've chewed up the edges a little bit. And it's not too hard on the hands, but we're going to wrap it all with leather, as we'll see in a second. But I make this shape. This shape for the buckler. If the buckler a little bit smaller, then yeah, it might be to the edges. And to attach the handle to the main frame of the buckler, right, you'll need a separate piece of wood, of course, to make your handle. It should be a bit thicker, maybe up to 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch thick is good. So you definitely want about 2 centimeters of thickness. Cut it a little small, and then you can cut extra if you need to see how it fits in hand, okay? Especially if you make it for your own hand. But I attach this with dowels. Actually, I attached it with chopsticks. What? Well, you know, you order food and you say, I don't need chopsticks. I'm just taking away food to eat at home. And I have nice chopsticks that I prefer to use. And they still put the chopsticks in, even though you said, well, they make excellent dowels. And so that's what I did. I drilled some pilot holes in the handle, matched it up, drilled them into the wooden part of the buckler, put the chopsticks in. Now they taper a little bit, and that's why I like the chopstick rather than just a wooden dowel. They taper a little bit so it's easy to start feeding it through, line everything up, hammer them in. I put it like this. I hammered until they would hit the ground. Then I knew they were through. break off the tops, hammer again just to make sure that they are flush and ready. We're going to cover all this with canvas later, so don't worry too much about how it looks. And then, of course, use the saw to cut the ends off on the other side, and there we go. So I use chopsticks as wooden dowels to secure the handle, and then an extra tacking nail on either side. I drilled a pilot hole as well because I don't want to splinter anything. Drilling pilot holes is very important for doing this work. If you just hammer right through, you could split the plywood in a certain direction. There are layers, but it starts to chip and flake, or you could ruin your handle. And I have ruined handles before. I have messed them up, I have split them, I have cracked them, I have chipped them. A lot of bad things, and you gotta go and make a whole new one. You've already put all your tools away. You know, you've unplugged and taken the saw blade out of the jigsaw that you were using to do the cutting, and now you gotta go get back. Well, yeah. By the way, the tools that I use are a jigsaw, I have a little palm sander, and I have a cordless power drill. The only tools that I'm using. I don't have a lot of things that I would like, but I don't need them often enough to justify the cost, and you don't need to have a lot of things. Maybe you can borrow. Maybe you have a neighbor. Maybe you have a family member. Maybe you can go visit them, and they can help you make this. Always a good thing. So you cut your circle. You need to figure out your inner circle. I drill a couple pilot holes to get the jigsaw blade through. Then I cut out the center, cut out the handle, pilot holes, dowels or chopsticks, secured, drill more pilot holes, put in some tacking nails. There we go. So this is fairly sturdy. It's not going to be perfect. It may not last forever, but if the handle breaks off, you can always add a new one. Sure. Next thing that we need to do is I then build it up with leather. So instead of having a whole bunch of tools and planes and draw knives and belt sanders to shape the handle and contour it perfectly, I'm just going to wrap it with leather. So I'm putting a scrap piece underneath, and then I have a nicer piece that I'll wrap over top, a couple layers of leather. This one just has a simple piece, but it's still fairly comfy, right? So I will do a wrap, or I will do a little bit of leather. It could be cloth, it doesn't have to be that. I mean, it could be a fabric tape, it could be hockey tape. Living in Canada, hockey tape is pretty easy to find. It could be tennis racket tape. Put a couple layers, make sure it's comfortable. You should be wearing a glove when you're doing fencing anyway, so. But we layer it up, we make it comfy, we make a good grip, and we notice that we've got space. This hole here is so that your hand is not hitting. If you were using sword and buckler, you need the little bit of space in the center to maneuver your hand around. So this helps. So when we have the shield boss attached, we've got space for the hand. This is going to protect your hand, but this little protrusion comes out on the shield boss. That's the center of our buckler, and there we go. And it allows us to be maneuverable. But I've also made it this way because if I want to wear my sparring gloves with this, I need the room. If this handle is a little tight for sparring glove, so I've made them a little higher, so you can see this one is much closer. Fine for just a simple glove or bare hands. This one, I wanted more space. So I'm building the new bucklers with a bit more room on the handle. And now, maybe you have a drawer handle, a wooden drawer handle that you could attach. Maybe you could use screws to put it in. You could use anything, really, to make a comfortable handle that you can grab. I've seen gate handles, I've seen drawer pulls, I've seen lots of things that people could use for making shift their own buckler. So we have some leather, so you could get some old scrap fabric, you could get some canvas, which we'll talk about in a second because we'll need some canvas, and we need something for that. Now, you don't want to spend money on getting a little shield boss or a larger one to build this. Go to your dollar store or a pound shop or whatever discount place you have. Buy a pet food dish. I know, but you can tack a pet food dish onto here. It's not quite the same, it's going to be flat bottom, but it's going to create that look. You can even try and hammer it out a little bit and make it a little bit more dome shape if you want, but get yourself a shallow metal bowl, and you can put tacking nails. When the nails go through, hammer them over, hammer them in, and then you can put some fabric over top to help make sure that you're not rubbing your hand against it. You won't. But, you know, it's just that moment where you go to put something down, you move your finger, you hurt yourself. Not when you're actually using it, that things happen. So you could use a pet food dish. And I should have grabbed one to show you, but too late. Now, once I have the handle done and I've done the leather wrap, I need to decorate, and so I cut canvas circles. This is just painter's drop cloth. I found that you can buy a really big piece of painter's drop cloth, which is 100% cotton canvas. Very good at absorbing paint, which will be important. And you can use that as your cover. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your buckler, you're going to put that over top. You're going to kind of put glue on the surface of your buckler, arrange it so that you have some overlap. You're eventually going to need to fold it over. When you fold it over, you will need to make cuts. And there you go, and you'll have a surface. And then you'll cut a hole in the center, and you'll fold into the disc as well. So you put a little bit of cloth, just in case you rub your hand against it, there's some cloth to help protect it. So that canvas cloth, painter's drop cloth, which I purchased a long time ago, and I'm almost done with. Lots of projects, lots of shields. The shield in the background uses the same kind of canvas, and I painted, and that's how I made this one. And of course, you can see it's painter's drop cloth. What's it supposed to do? Absorb paint. So it's great. It absorbs all this paint, and it looks really good. This is the Calgary Fellowship of the Sword colors. Our matches our logo. So I put that on there, and then of course, you finally rivet on your shield boss, and I have these little brass rivets, and then you can grind and hammer them down, make them flush. Here they are, wedged in, really good, and I've got a buckler. I also have a bit of leather, so I put the leather around the edge. Need a cheap source for leather? Go to a discount store, go to some charity shop, go someplace that sells clothes, and I know I like, in Calgary, I like Value Village. It's a North American chain, and for $25 you get a leather jacket, and you can use it for a lot of material, and then cut strips. This is just from a piece of leather I bought from the leather shop, like a Tandy Leather, a supply store. Cut the strips, tack, glue, and tack it on, and I had a ready buckler. So we go from cutting a wooden disc, there we go, cut our wooden disc, 1.25 centimeter or half-inch thick at 30 centimeter or 12-inch diameter. Cut a little bit smaller than that. Use the jigsaw to cut inside the line, so maybe it's only 11.5 inches. Cut out the center. Cut a shape and a plank of wood to be your handle. Drill some pilot holes. Use a chopstick to wedge it on. Drill some pilot holes and put tacking nails. Wrap in leather. Put a fabric covering over top. And you might have old clothes that you would just cut the circle out of, and it's already a color. It already looks good. And then pet food dish can be tacked on. A little awkward. Or you can go online and purchase an actual shield boss and tack that on. And there you go. You've made a buckler. How does that compare to something that you buy that's fully made? Well, here's one that's fully made buckler, all steel construction. But if you want something that's very 14th century or something that you can make yourself, then here you go. 14th century, we were going to have wood and leather and fabric with a metal boss, a wooden handle. Maybe when we get to the 15th century, we'll have a lot more metal components. We might have a full metal buckler. Why? Metallurgy changes. We know that at the beginning, in the late 13th and into the 14th centuries, we know that metallurgy is still developing, and plate armor is just coming in with little pieces to protect your knees, your elbows, little stuff that's going on. Most of the metal work is going into making a helmet to protect your head. So as it gets better and you can build bigger pieces, sure, into the 15th century, we can start getting things like this. And into the 16th century, we're definitely going to get big metal shields, rotella, for example. And we're going to get lots of bucklers. And we see bucklers kind of change, and some of the shapes will change. Diamond-shaped and scalloped-edged, but especially if we want something that looks a bit more fantasy, a little bit more 14th century, then this wood with a metal buckler, or even just a bowl tacked to the front of it. There we go. So, you cut yourself a circle, you cut yourself a handle, assemble. Put something on the handle to wrap it. Put some cloth over top. Put your shield boss on. There you go. It takes a little while, but it's a fun project, and Halloween is getting closer and closer. And if you want to make yourself some kind of shield for a costume, a medieval or a fantasy, or who knows what kind of costume, you know, or even for conventions, cosplay, yeah, now's the time. Piece of wood for $17, enough to make 4 bucklers. Another piece of wood, scrap wood. You can probably, if you go to a lumber supply place, you can probably find some damaged scrap wood they'll give you for free. Just ask, just say, I'm buying this piece and I need something extra, but I only need a small bit of it. And, you know, they sometimes have scrap bins and offcuts that they have from preparing other projects for people. Just ask them, see if they'll give it to you. And if they give it to you, well, there you go. Now you have free wood. So I've often collected pieces of wood like that. I'm buying something anyway. They don't mind throwing in a few things. You know, you just explain, oh yeah, the guy in the lumber. If they really want to ask at the till, at the cashier, they'll call. And the guy will say, oh yeah, it's fine. So just be honest, ask, and yeah, you get all the parts you need. Rivets came from the leather supply shop. They're actually brass rivets from Tandy Leather, but you can have a nail put through, and you can hammer it flat and over. Again, cover it with fabric if you're using nails. You can cut the points off and then hammer them over. A lot of different ways to do it to secure this. You only need tacking nails if it's a pet food dish. And if it's for costumes, if you're not actually going to be sparring sword and buckler in a class, then yeah, it's fine. Alright, so just a quick look at how I am building some bucklers for class. Thank you very much for watching. Do remember, like, subscribe, comments, because your comments help shape the channel and the content. And I really appreciate when you do comment, and we can have that conversation, and then I have ideas for more videos, and then you enjoy those videos, and on and on and on it goes. Anyway, friends, take care, stay safe, and remember, when you want to build a project, you gotta buckle down and get through it. Hey friends, Lauren back with you, and today we're going to talk about buckler building. That's right, I am making some